Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 1107 for the 6th of March. So we're going to start off with the Kursk front first. And over at the Kursk front, over on the western flank, we only have one report of fighting reported at Lebedevka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry as usual. Shelling reported at Kozadzha Loknia, as well as Velyka Novosilka. So that's all. Over in the northern flank, we have major updates. There is a geolocation of Russian forces at Staraya Zorokina, which actually means that the Russian forces have captured this region, and this validates Russian claims as well as the claim that they have captured Novaya Sorokina. So this is a very, very important geolocation, confirming all the Russian advances in this region here, and also corroborates that the fighting has now moved to Malaya Loknia. So the Russian forces have captured Novaya Sorokina, and yeah, on the verge of capturing Sorokina as well. So very, very significant update in this sector. So Ukrainians potentially still have positions all over this place, but yeah, but I think the settlement, the town itself, I think is quite likely to be under Russian control right now. So over on the eastern flank, in the Sudja region, we have fighting reported. So these two I already mentioned. The shelling at Kozadzha Loknia as well as the Velyka Novosilka. There's shelling reported at Zeleshenka as well as Urbeskina, Goncharovka as well as Sudja. Fighting is reported at Manovka as usual. So strategically nothing changed, but also major change over in the southern flank with the Russian forces punching a big hole into the Ukrainian lines at the southern flank, with Russian forces penetrating deep from the south of Skrilovka towards the Ukrainian-Russian border. Over here, the entire forest region here is most likely under Russian control. And there is fighting reported at Gordon again, which could potentially mean that the Russians are attacking southward from this position towards Gordon. There is a possibility, or they could possibly attack in this direction coming from the south of Kurakhove. That's a possibility, which means that we are also possibly seeing a possible pincer to encircle any Ukrainian forces at Kurakhove. That is also a possibility, but tentatively, the main one is this one. This is the main update. So that's all from the southern flank of the Kursk front. So we move on to the Kharkiv front. Over at Kharkiv front, we have fighting reported over at Kozadzha Lopan. Shelling is reported at this location called Rosokuvate. So yeah, not very important. It's in the rear position. So that's all from this western side. On the eastern side, we have fighting reported at Voschansk, as usual, mentioned by both Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So that's all. Kozadzha Lopan is mentioned by the Russians. Over in the Voreshna front. At the Voreshna front, major update over at Novomlinsk. Based on the Ukrainian mapping, the Russian forces have taken the entire northern part of Novomlinsk, confirmed the securing as well as the expansion of the bridgehead across the Oskil River. So this is actually pretty significant in terms of the area captured. This alone is 2.73 square kilometers. So, and over in the south, there is Ukrainian claim that they have taken the western part of western outskirts of Zaporizhzhia. This is based on Ukrainian mapping, and Kurakhove is mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry, with the Russians allegedly attacking in this direction. Clearly, they don't really care about Zaporizhzhia because they continue to attack into Kurakhove. So yeah, let's see how this continue to play. Very weird that the Russians do not mention about Zaporizhzhia. They just continue straight on to Kurakhove. Over in the Kupyansk front, we have no reports. And we go to the Borova front. At the Borova front, we have the mention of Zaporizhzhia by the Ukrainians. That's the only one we have being reported here. Borova front continue to be pretty quiet. There's frontline changes over at Nadia. This is based on geolocation, which I believe we have already mentioned yesterday. And we move on to the northern flank of the Lyman front. so in the northern flank of the Lyman front, we have mention of Nevsky by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So Russian forces are also attacking at the Ivanivka region and towards Zaporizhzhia. This is mentioned by the Ukrainians, this is mentioned by the Russians. So these Ukrainians, so Ukrainian and Russian reports. So that's about it. Nothing on the side, the northern outer sides that we usually hear about, like Kharkivka, Katerinivka, Norway, Zaporizhzhia. No, all of this is not mentioned. So mainly is still around here, which is interesting. Over in the rest of the Lyman front, there is mention of Yampolivka by the Ukrainians. The Russians are allegedly still attacking Yampolivka. The fact that the Ukrainians are still here is amazing. That they are still able to hold this position. So that's all. Over in the Siversk front, at the Siversk front, we have fighting reported at Kharkiv and Siversk. So the Kharkiv is mentioned by the Ukrainians, Siversk mentioned by the Russians. So probably attack is coming from Bilohorivka direction. There is a geolocation causing a frontline change at Bilohorivka. I believe we have already mentioned yesterday, I guess. Did we? Maybe not. So geolocation of Russian forces showing the Russians have advanced at Bilohorivka. So that's all from this region. We move to the Bakhmut front. At the Bakhmut front, we have, this is Bakhmut. At the Bakhmut front, we have a fighting reporter at Chasivya and Stupovsky, mentioned by the Ukrainians, and both are by Ukrainians. The Russians have been geolocated, doing a flanking operation in the rear position. So these are two mentioned by the Ukrainians, and so as you can see, this is pretty significant. This geolocation, as mentioned in the frontline changes report, this geolocation was noted that the Russians are having an armored force, a numerous armored force, a large number of armored vehicles. So inside Chasivya, Ukrainians allegedly is still defending the central part. So this rear action is very worrying, I would say, for the Ukrainian forces, because this may cut off their defense. So it's unclear if the Ukrainians have a strong defense line along Mykolaiivka. So that's something to really take note about. And of course, not to forget that the Russians are having a strong position in this southern position. So this rear position, this rear flanking operation is very, very dangerous for the Ukrainian forces. So over in the southern flank, we have mention of Ozyarenivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, some kind of attack around here. Over at the Toretsk front, we have shelling reported over at Ivanopilia and Pleshievka. These locations continue to be reported to have shelling or attacks by the Russian Defense Ministry. They keep repeating all these regions, which is kind of interesting. Why they are constantly attacking this position. I wonder if there is a build-up of Ukrainian forces around here that keep attracting attention of the Russian forces. Over in the Toretsk itself, fighting is reported towards Dilievka. They're fighting is reported at Krimsky, Toretsk. Ukrainians are counter-attacking at Krimsky, Toretsk, as well as towards Zaporizhzhia, according to the Russian sources. So as usual, the Russians are talking about the Ukrainians attacking. The Ukrainians are talking about the Russians attacking, and there is some slight frontline changes being noted by the Russian mapping, and the Ukrainian forces did manage to take back some of Krimsky. So tentatively, the reports of the Ukrainian attacks is an acknowledgement of the geolocations of the frontline changes by Ryba, the pro-Russian source. So that's about it. The status is similar to previous yesterday, as the Ukrainian geolocations does make it a bit dangerous, because the Russians could potentially be encircled. So dangerous for the Russians, so they can be encircled around here. But this area here is pretty difficult to fight through, because this is the center of Toretsk. So but we shall wait and see how this continue to play out. Over in the northern flank of the Pokrovsk front, we have So in case you do not know, this is Pokrovsk. The Pokrovsk front is here. In the northern flank, we have shelling reported at Yablonivka, Alexandropil, and Novoalenivka, all mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. Zooming in a bit, we have fighting reported over at Marylivka, and the Ukrainians are attacking Yelizavetivka. The Ryba is the one that reported of the Ukrainian attack, whereas the Russian Defense Ministry mentioned the attack on Marylivka. So, no, interesting. So that's all. Over in the Minokhrad sector, we have the fighting reported at Promin, Minokhrad, Novopalivka, towards Pokrovsk. Ukraine's counterattack at Shevchenko with frontline changes noted by Ryba's mapping. There is geolocation of an airstrike on Novopalivka, as well as another Russian strike on an ammunition depot inside of Minokhrad. So yeah, something like this. So the mention of Promin by the Ukrainians, Russians, and Russians. So of all the reports, this Russian report, and this Ukrainian report. So then of course this is Russian report as well, the Shevchenko one. So the Ukrainian spring offensive, there isn't much reports of that over the past 24 hours. I got a feeling that it's dying out. I think if the rumors of the cutting of intelligence to Ukraine from the American side might actually be affecting operations, and maybe this is causing Ukrainians to actually to stop their attack. There is a possibility the offensive operation might be affected very, very tremendously. But we shall see how these continue to play out. And also, happy birthday to those is having your birthday today. I want to make this a habit to wish you guys happy birthday every single day. So let's see how this goes. And yeah, so let's move on. Over at this Pokrovsk sector, we have not much reports around here except the Ukrainians are allegedly attacking at Pischany. So the Russians are attacking Vivrove, the Ukrainians are attacking Pischany. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces just off this position. Vivrove mentioned by the Russians, Pischany mentioned by Ryba. So these are all Russian reportings. So that's all. I think the front line not changing. There's not much to really talk about for now. Over in the southern flank, it went really quiet as well, with fighting reported at Nedievka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. And that's all. It's a bit scary. I think we'll say that the Russians are there's not much fighting or attacks being reported as compared to usually, especially for the Pokrovsk front. Usually we see there's a flurry of attack all across the entire front line. The fact that it went quiet, is a bit suspicious. Over at the Andriivka front, we have the announcement from the Russian Defense Ministry that they have captured Andriivka, corroborating Russian claims. And then there's fighting reported at Constantinople as well as Andriivka, both of which is mentioned by the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry is mentioning the two reports, whereas the Russians already claimed the full capture of Andriivka. So geolocation of Russian forces see the Russians attacking towards Bakhmut, which is marked as some kind of frontline change near Roslev, which I did mention in the frontline changes report. So this chunk here is the frontline change. It is a big chunk of land taken, but it's not near anything strategically important. The Ukrainians still have Bakhmut and Roslev. The Russians are simply pushing up. So that's all from the Andriivka front. Over in the northern flank of the eastern flank of the Velyka Novosilka sector or the front, this is wrong color by the way. We have the mention of Ohradny, fighting reported towards there, fighting reported at Skutny, Bulatske, as well as Vasily. Shelling reported at Fedorivka. And so the mention is by the Russians, Skutny is by Ukrainians, Russian, Ukrainians, this Russian. So Russian, Ukrainians. So this is a Russian report, Ukrainian report, Russian report, Ukrainian report, and this by the Russians. So the fighting moving in the direction of Ohradny, not mentioned by the Ukrainians. So they could potentially be just shelling. That's also a possibility. Whereas the main push, it seems to be, in this area here between the Belatsky to Skutny, where the Russians simply mark it as Vasily, whereas the Ukrainians mark it as both Belatsky and Skutny. There's a possibility. So interesting move. As the Russians continue to push up towards the Mokriali River in the direction of Koma. Over on the western flank of the Velyka Novosilka front, Belatsky is mentioned already. So this is already mentioned just now. The Russians are attacking towards Shevchenko, Privyone, as well as Novosilka. Belatsky mentioned Ukrainians, Russians, Ukrainians, and Ukrainians. So Ukrainian, Russian, Ukrainians are kind of like struggles to remember. So it's like a exercise, right? No, the memorizing exercise. So the Russians are already mentioning Shevchenko as the direction of attack. I've decided to put it as an attack. This is the first time we've mentioned this as an attack because the front line is really very close. I think there's no more need to put it as shelling. The Russians are potentially attacking in that direction, especially, they have already claimed the capture of Belatsky and Privyone. So an attack in this direction does make sense. So that's all from the Velyka Novosilka front, and then we go into the Zaporizhzhia front. So this is Zaporizhzhia. This is the entire Zaporizhzhia front, cutting off here. And this is Huaypole sector, the Huaypole sector, Kharkiv sector, and the Kursk sector. Together they are core. No, that's a bit lame. So fighting. So across the entire front line, we have fighting reported at Huaypole, Malatomashka, Robotyne, Nestryanka, Malishebaki, Pyatikaki, as well as Kursk. And strategically, you can see it's largely similar to yesterday. Across the entire front line, there seems to be actions, and the new one is the one at Robotyne, mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry, which is interesting. Huaypole is mentioned by Russians, Malatomashka by both Ukrainians. So so this is I forgot. Russian, Ukrainian. This Russian, Ukrainian, right? Then Nestryanka by the Ukrainians. So, and then this is by the Ukrainians. Petikaki by both Russian and Ukrainians. And Kursk is by the Ukrainians. So, Russian, Ukrainians, and this by the Ukrainians. So, you can see the differences between the report from the Russian and the Ukrainian side. And the Russian seems to be suggesting a much more spread out attack, whereas the Ukrainian seems to suggest some kind of a very strong offensive operation in this sector. And then there's also, of course, the Malatomashka thing. So this definitely looks very offensive-ish, but it's still not at the kind of level of offensive that we will associate with a major offensive. It felt like a push. It felt like the Pokrovsk level kind of push, but not like the kind of large scale punch that we are seeing. But let's see. Definitely there is no frontline changes suggesting that the Ukrainian defense is very strong. Tentatively, they are still holding the line. So until there's some kind of breakthrough, the reporting is going to sound quite boring, I would say. So that's all from this sector. We move on to the Kherson front. At the Kherson front, we have only the report of shelling at Andriivka and Dnipropetrovsk, mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. And so that's all. Nothing much about Kherson. And that's about it. So anyway, that's it for the summary for the day of 1107 for the 6th of March. Press the like button, subscribe, 100,000 subs. Let's try to get there. It's quite shocking that it's so hard to reach there. I don't know. I watch a lot of YouTube videos and channels that it's like, 100, not even 100k. 100k is actually not a big number on the YouTube level. Like on the grand scale of thing, on YouTube it's actually not that much. Like I follow channels that in hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Although I watch a lot of games and stuff, and of course the videos then of course is not so niche. Like Ukraine war is a very niche topic. Yeah, I can understand why. So anyway, that's it. Whatever it is. So let's see how this goes. No, it is what it is. No, all the terms that I used to use. So that's it. Press the like button, and I'll see you guys in the next update.